Beale says that he didn't see him. I have a very hard time believing that.
I think he's probably right. He probably didn't see him.
Really?
He might have a bad peripheral vision. You don't know what Mick Beale's eyesight is like. Beale can do no right at the moment. He doesn't help himself.
But there's no way he's not seen him. Beale is already a very unlikable character. This just makes it much, much worse when he's doing stupid things like this. Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Gwachan Lai to my Shailen Patel. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Oh, Justin, I hope you have had a cracking weekend, because I certainly haven't. I went to watch, I forgot what it's called now, the new Spider-Man kind of film, Madam Web.
Madam Web.
Yes. Have you heard about this?
I've heard many things about it. I don't need to see it. I don't think I could take this one off my list.
Yeah, I can give you a review right now. Absolutely appalling. It was shocking. It wasn't even like so bad it was funny. It was just boring and crap.
I reckon it'll be like putting you or I in that situation where we have to act for the first time. I've seen clips of certain segments of the film and I've seen lines and dialogue, and I imagine it's if you plop us into that situation, no experience whatsoever, you will get exactly the same outcome. Like me, for example, charismatic me. Can you imagine?
Considering it's quite a high-profile cast as well, it's incredible how bloody awful that film was. So hopefully this show is going to be more entertaining than that. In fact, you know what? I can guarantee it, dear listener. Welcome to the #1 Championship podcast, The Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This is indeed a Sunday episode, so we're going to be talking about the results in the Championship this past weekend. And as a little change of pace, we're going to be starting off by focusing on the teams chasing the playoffs. Then we'll look at the results at the top and bottom of the table. We've also got more footballers you've met in strange places. An incredible response to that. I'm very much looking forward to bringing that to your ears. And then we'll finish off with the polls and Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight as per usual. But let's kick things off with Birmingham v Sunderland. And it was revenge of the Mobs. Yes, Tony Mowbray completed his redemption arc by beating Sunderland 2-1 2 months after they sacked him. John Talbot's 3-word review: Beale out now. Max's is comeback, limbs and revels. And we've got to keep in mind here that Sunderland got rid of Mowbray because they seemingly thought they could do better. And here we are 2 months later. And I think this is why I reckon a lot of neutrals will have found a bit of joy in Birmingham winning this one, Justin, because the Birmingham fans certainly enjoyed it because they threw him a bag of revels as he walked off the pitch. It's like when a great opera singer puts on a brilliant show. Instead of showering him with roses, it's a bag of revels. And look, I've got absolutely nothing against Sunderland as a football club, but I will admit I was so happy for Tony Mowbray winning here.
I was initially going to take issue with some of your comments that you put down, but actually, I think you are right. Mainly because Tony Mowbray is such a nice guy.
Yeah,
he's such a nice guy, and I think his profile's risen so highly because if you look at the turnaround in Birmingham City, even over the last few weeks, it's fantastic, and the character he's instilled in the players in the football club, especially recently, to coming from behind in games, is absolutely massive. And they did the same thing here. And I think if you're coming off the game and people are throwing you gifts like a bag of revels, which can do some damage, by the way. Let's be careful, please, Birmingham supporters. Let's not get too hasty. A big share bag, they could pack a punch. So let's be careful when we're next to it, because it's inevitable. It's going to happen again. It's a fantastic turnaround for Birmingham City and obviously Tony Mowbray, who is doing what we know he can do. And what he should probably be doing at Sunderland right now. But unfortunately, they probably pulled the trigger a bit too soon.
You could say that again. It'd be fascinating, wouldn't it, to see Tony Mowbray just struggling to keep his head above the water while he's being drowned in revels.
I was going to say, do you reckon he has a bathtub at home just full of revels? He just lies there like a mafia boss in his bathtub full of an array of chocolates.
Instead of cocaine or money, he's there in revels instead. As I said, the reason Sunderland seemed to get rid of Mowbray is because they thought they could do better. If they think Mick Beale is better, then that's a bit of an insult to Tony Mowbray, isn't it? But Sunderland's loss is Birmingham's gain, and They were left in a pretty troubling position after the Rooney debacle, but they're almost certainly going in the right direction again now under Mobes, because that's just what he does, isn't it? He will leave Birmingham in a better position. You can almost guarantee it one way or another, and we're already starting to see that. They've gone from looking over their shoulder to mid-table in the space of a month. It's great to see, it really is. By the way, the limbs for the first Birmingham goal were insanely good. It was, I don't know if it's got something to do with the new stands at St Andrews, but it looked like utter carnage after that Jordan James goal went in. But we've been saying recently, Justin, that Mick Beale has somewhat been winning around these Sunderland fans, but it wouldn't take much for that all to unravel very quickly. Losing to Huddersfield in midweek and then losing to the manager who you controversially replaced. The Beale out brigade is back in business, Justin.
Was it ever out? Was it ever out? I think that's the thing. I think it's quite interesting how fragile his relationship with the Sunderland fans actually is, because he can do no right at the moment. And when your performances are as subpar as they are, they have been tightening up. I think that's the key thing. But at the same time, there are so many mistakes that get made in games, and I just don't see any sort of management to get around that or to alleviate that. I will take a degree of sympathy with him. I do think a lot of managers who probably are more experienced might not fare much better with this young, inexperienced squad that he's got. They are going to make mistakes.
Justin, it's a very talented squad, though, isn't it?
It is, but it's young, and you are going to get inconsistencies. But at the same time, he's not vastly experienced himself in the world of management. This is just his second full season as a manager, isn't it? You go back to QPR last season, Rangers, going into this season, and then he's going to find it difficult, and he's going to go through the motions himself. And I think that's where Sunderland have probably got the appointment wrong, because they're going from a vastly experienced manager who's got a great character in Tony Mowbray to someone who's still trying to build his profile and still probably trying to find his way. And you don't need that. You can't have that with a Sunderland squad that is boasting so many young, talented players. They need to be playing a certain way, and he's not getting that out of them. Because you can excuse mistakes, can't you? You can excuse mistakes in games. When the football and the endeavours are there, and they are playing the right way, but they're not. I don't really know what I'm looking at with this Sunderland team under Mick Beale, and frankly, for me, I would opt for someone a little bit more with a little bit more of a clear philosophy than Mick Beale.
Well, I by and large agree with what you're saying, Justin. For me, this Sunderland team should be in the top six. On paper, it's a top six squad. When you've got a player like Jack Clarke, who's arguably been the best player in the division this season, and then others like Dan Neil, who is someone we've been tipping possibly playing for England in the future. Pierre Ekwa was fantastic last season. Trey Hume is one of the best fullbacks in the division for my money. Dan Ballard, excellent defender. This should be in the top six, and the fact that they're playing right now like simply a mid-table side isn't good enough. And well, I don't think Mick Beale, based off the job he's done, deserves to be sacked after 2 months. It's looking at this stage like there needs to be a change, because I just can't see it getting any better anytime soon. Mainly because the fans just don't believe in him as a manager. And, I mean, the Sunderland fans weren't best pleased at all prior to this, and that's before you even get onto him blanking players after they get substituted off and want a handshake. And that's exactly what happened to Trey Hume here. Now, Beale says that he didn't see him. I have a very hard time believing that, Justin. What about you?
I won't sit on the fence. I won't defend him either. I just think he's probably right. He probably didn't see him.
Really?
He might have a bad peripheral vision. You don't know what Mick Beale's eyesight is like.
If you watch it again, he's not even in the peripheral vision. He's like slightly he's about a 45-degree angle away from where Mick Beale's looking. He's got to have seen him.
He's not a bird, He's not got sideways vision. He can't see me.
Have you got tunnel vision?
He might. Big Beale might have tunnel vision, and he's just entirely focused on what's going on. Like I said, we don't know a lot about managers' eye prescriptions. We can't take that for granted. I think I will give him not a little bit of credit, but he did come out and say that he didn't see him, and I think it's fair enough. But like I said, Beale can do no right at the moment. I think that would be the best way of saying it. Its PR within the club is at its all-time low, probably, and he's a little bit unlucky, but at the same time, he doesn't help himself.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why, blanking players, and I think he's done it on purpose, Justin, because I've watched it several times now, mainly because I love cringy moments like that, hence why I work with you. But there's no way he's not seen him. there. I'd say there's a small chance he's not seen Hume's hand being offered out for the handshake. But it is physically impossible for him not to have seen Hume being there, because he's right next to him. And at the very least, it's poor man management to just ignore a player after he's been subbed off. And this is before you remember that it's Trey Hume, a young lad who's been one of Sunderland's best performers this season and gives 100% every game. And look, Beale is already a very unlikable character. This just makes it much, much worse when he's doing stupid things like this. Anyway, let's move on, Justin. How about this for an Ackerbuster? Leicester 1, Middlesbrough 2. 3-word reviews from Boro fans. Matt Rowney says, "We are weird." Steve Cosgrave, typical Boro that. MFC Ben, "How the fuck?" And Leicester fan Tony Bryan's 3-word review, "Squeaky bum time." This was just Leicester's 5th loss of the season. And fair play to Boro. They had just 1 win in 6 heading into this. So I don't think many would have given them a chance here, but Michael Carrick's boys took the chances and really caught Leicester on a bad day. We did say on Friday, Justin, that it seems like Middlesbrough's season was fizzling out. However, perhaps there's more life than we thought.
I think so. I think if you stand up to Leicester in their own backyard and not play the way you're expected to play, because you've got to adapt when you're playing the best team in the league. They were buried by the amount of chances that Leicester were created, and they still came out with the 3 points. They had to ride the luck a little bit. And I think the way they set up tactically, I think was spot on. Playing a 3 at the back was a good way of getting the best out of the players that he had available to him, Michael Carrick. And if you look at the first goal, for example, it was 3 or 4 passes up the pitch. It was direct, it was quick, it was incisive. And how often can we say that Middlesbrough have taken that chance when it's been laid up like that? Not very often this season. So it was almost a perfect microcosm of everything that Middlesbrough haven't done this season. They've had their backs to the wall, they defended well, they took their chances, and it's just about generating that consistency. So everything that the Boro fans said on Twitter, it was weird, how the fuck, I understand it. But they've got it in them. That's the annoying thing. They've got it in them. And I think if we see that more often, then there certainly could be life in them. Only 7 points off the top 6, but at this point, it's a conversation we'll probably have in a few weeks' time. But more performance like this, why not? It can happen.
Well, they've definitely got it in them, haven't they? Because they've got some very good players. They've undoubtedly been a lot less free-flowing and potent in attack than they were last season. And simply outscoring the opposition was the name of the game last season, and they've not been able to do that as frequently this season. However, Finazaz is an excellent player, as we keep saying. If Riley McGree stays fit and gets back in form, that's a huge boost. And Lewis O'Brien's another one who's had his injury problems, but is undoubtedly a brilliant player as well. So there are the tools to work with here. But despite being Leicester, in the last 2 months, they've picked up 1 point from 2 games against Rotherham, lost to Preston and Bristol City at home. So you've got to look at it like this. The wins against Leicester are great, but if those other games, if you're not getting anything from those other games, they're the ones that get you in the playoffs. So it's all well and good beating Leicester, but you've got to do it week in, week out. And so if they're going to get back into the playoff picture properly, they have to be more consistent, don't they? And that means just following this up, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's more performances like this. Again, you go to the second goal, they were incisive, the way they broke. I think tactically the way they set up probably suited them a little bit more, and they had good runners and technical runners from midfield. There was a lot to like about how Middlesbrough played against Leicester, albeit they didn't create the better chances and were quite lucky at times. And like I said, all the ingredients there. You look at Lewis O'Brien, who was the best midfielder in the league a couple of seasons ago with Huddersfield. When you've got a player like that at your disposal, you're going to have a chance. It's just about taking those moments and weathering the storms when they need to, and coming out the other side. So I think as far as Middlesbrough go, this is a benchmark performance that they need to build on. Yes, they weren't the better team, but there are so many variables to take away from it, so many positives to take away from it, that they just need to bring into their weekly performances. And if they do that, they'll be a damn good side. But like you said, not getting points against those teams that they need to get points against to get into that top 6. That can be damaging, but it's performances like this that will get you them.
Yeah, well, Middlesbrough are 13th despite this win, 7 points away from the top 6. Despite this loss, Leicester are still 9 points clear at the top. They'll be hoping this was just a bad day at the office, because their next game is Leeds away. I tell you what, if they lose there, could be interesting. We'll have to wait and see. But there were injury time goals for both sides at the John Smith Stadium as Hull won 2-1 away at Huddersfield. Jacob Greaves scored both goals for the Tigers. He hadn't scored for 12 months prior to this. Bloody bussers, mate. But it's 4 wins from 5 now for Liam Rosenior's lads. Justin, you have said recently you haven't been overly impressed with Hull since the turn of the year, despite their exciting January business. Was this better in your eyes?
I don't think it was. I think on the balance of chances, it was probably fairly even. And I've seen so many Hull fans say that we never give Hull any credit, but I've been praising Hull for the last 5 or 6 months.
What podcast have they been listening to?
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. But there is validation in what I'm saying over the past sort of few weeks, because I think with the quality that Hull have in their squad, they're not playing in line with that. You take Philogene out of the equation for this game, for example. I thought he was fantastic against Huddersfield. He was brilliant. Zarori and Carvalho didn't really offer a lot throughout the 90 minutes, and I think Carvalho was substituted. Billy Sharp only had 10 touches of the ball. I think if you bring Liam Delap into the side, changes things a little bit. And as I say, Philogene had the same number of touches as Zarori and Carvalho, but did so much more with it. It's doing that. It's getting more out of the players that he's got. And Rosenior accepted himself after the game that the football wasn't the best, but it was the character and togetherness that got them to the end of the game. And that's absolutely spot on. You need that in your team if you're gonna get into the top 6. But at the end of the day, if you've got the players you've got at your disposal and you've invested fairly heavily in January, you need a little bit more. And that's where I'm sat with them. I'm not criticising them. I just want to see more creativity out of this team, because they boast arguably one of the best sort of technically gifted front three out of the whole division.
Yeah, well, that's completely fair, Justin. It's 4 wins from 5, and that's obviously great, but I think it papers over the cracks because they haven't been great during this run. The wins came against Sunderland, Millwall, Rotherham and Huddersfield. Now, Sunderland, fair enough, that's a good scalp, although it was a bit of a snatch and grab win when that actually happened. And then the other 3 teams, Hull should be expecting to beat, and they made it hard work for themselves, with the exception of the Rotherham game, but Rotherham are awful, aren't they? So, they've got to up their levels, undoubtedly. That's particularly the case because they've got to play 4 of the current top 6 in their next 6 games. So it's tricky times for Hull, and if they don't up their levels and struggle to get anything from these next 6 games, then you'll be looking at the playoff race and be going, oh God, now we've got a bit of a mountain to climb in that respect. So that's why they have to play better, because you can't be just squeezing past a team like Huddersfield, who you should be beating when you're Hull City, particularly when you've got the games that they've got coming up. Anyway, so a disappointing afternoon for Huddersfield. I wonder what their new manager would have thought about it. Andre Breitenreiter was in the stands for this one. He's the former manager of Schalke, FC Zurich and Hoffenheim. Now, let's be honest, Justin, we don't know much about him, but we know someone who certainly does. Andy Brassel is a European football expert from our sister show on the continent. He's given us the lowdown on Breitenreiter.
Well, I'm sure there are Huddersfield fans who are hoping that Andre Breitenreiter will be nearer David Wagner than Jan Sievert. Look, Breitenreiter's been a good coach in Germany for the best part of a decade, really. An incredible job at Paderborn to get them in the top flight. And they played really brave football when they were there, despite the fact they were in resources that were never going to keep them in the Bundesliga. Did pretty well at Schalke, considering, and a job that has looked better and better as time has gone by, because Schalke have really suffered in recent years. His key achievement really is outside Germany, in going and winning the Swiss Super League with FC Zurich, which was a pretty astonishing achievement when you look at where they were just before that. And he's a coach that likes to play really bravely. That didn't always work at Hoffenheim in his last job in the Bundesliga, and that was cut short pretty quickly. But I think if you look at his career overall, he does play the sort of football that is going to excite fans, which I think is pretty important. Obviously, it goes into a job where he's going to have to battle from the off, but we've seen from the different sorts of jobs that he's done that he can be able to do that as well. And just because he's taken over an underdog team or a team that's in the lower reaches of a division, that doesn't mean he won't try and be ambitious with his game.
Thank you, Andy. And for more European football chat from our friends over at On the Continent, twice a week, every week, just search On the Continent in your podcast app and hit subscribe. Just an interesting what Andy was saying there. He has got a great CV, which makes me wonder why he fancies a relegation battle in the Championship, but I don't think Huddersfield fans will be complaining. What Andy failed to mention there, which I find quite interesting, is he won the Swiss Premier League with FC Zurich in 2022, ironically ahead of former Huddersfield manager David Wagner, in what was the only time in the last 6 seasons where young boys didn't win it. So he's officially a better manager than David Wagner. That we can say for sure. But what do you think of this? I think it's also interesting that he plays rather front-footedly.
Yeah, it's one of those that obviously there's always a degree of caution because we don't know a lot about him, but he's had success in Germany. I've read that he prefers a 3-5-2, which probably suits the current balance of the squad. And if he's playing on the front foot as well and playing brave football, that's going to suit where the club wants to go and where they have been in recent weeks under John Worthington, which is a good place to be. So yeah, it's a brave appointment. It's an ambitious one, and clearly he's got pedigree of achieving things with clubs, or overachieving things with clubs. I think that'd be the best way to describe it, which is what Huddersfield need. I mean, you've got David Wagner and Corliss Colbrand, who both overachieved with Huddersfield, had success. Some are born out of the premise of overachieving. So hopefully this follows suit. I think from a really deeper analytical level, looked at his Instagram, loves his dog, and that for me is a huge win. If you put your dog on social media, you are going to be a success in my eyes.
Particularly when he's managing the Terriers, Justin.
Oh,
Can't believe you didn't make that link.
But he doesn't have a terrier. That's what I didn't want to. I didn't want to mislead people.
Doesn't matter. He likes his pups. That's all that matters.
That's why he's been attracted to the job. That's why he wants a relegation battle in the Championship. I feel like we've just completely disregarded the expert level of insight that Andy Brassel has given us and brought it down to our level, and that's where we need to be.
That's what we do here on the second tier. But yeah, I think it's an exciting appointment for Huddersfield, really. These managers who come with big reputations from abroad often goes one or two ways, so I'm very intrigued to see how it does go. But if he plays on the front foot and has a record of overachieving with clubs who have been struggling, then that's exactly what Huddersfield need right now, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly intrigued to see how this gets on, and hopefully it pulls Huddersfield away from the relegation battle and continues to work magic like he has done in previous jobs. Now, we were just mentioning David Wagner. His Norwich side have now won 10 points from an available 12 after beating Cardiff 4-1. They've scored 12 goals in those last 4 games as well. Norwich City, they're firing them in for fun at the moment, aren't they?
Are we surprised that we're seeing this? I know they had a big chunk of the season where they were really crap and the fans were booing the team, and David Wagner was basically almost sticking his middle finger up at them and saying, I'm doing it my way, leave me alone. I'm reading between the lines, obviously, but for me, Norwich were the best team for the first few weeks of the season. They've got quality in the side, they've got quality in the forward areas, and now those players are returning, have returned. You're seeing the dividends. You look at the standards of the goals in the game against Cardiff, it felt like a Norwich home performance of a bygone era. It was attacking, it was quick, it was incisive, 3-4 passes, boom, cross, goal. And I think the third and fourth goals in this game actually highlighted the ability in this team. Mixed with the character coming back from behind as well, I think is really impressive. But when you've got a striker like Josh Sargent in and around it, you've got a hard-working individual like Ashley Barnes creating that space for him, you're going to get goals, you're going to get space. And Sargent's got 6 in 6 now. He doesn't like he's stopping either. So I'm really impressed with him. Scoring goals for fun. I expected them to get to this point at some degree in the season because they've got that attacking quality and we're seeing it.
Yeah, well, it is no surprise, really, that they are scoring as many as they are because ultimately they've got 2 of the best players in the division in their respective positions in Gabriel Sara and Josh Sargent. I think if there is any surprise, it's that it's happening with David Wagner as manager. I mean, Sargent, he's just gone to show what Norwich were missing when he was out injured because he is just such a good forward, and he really is. And they have admittedly played really well recently. I don't think I need to rethink my position on their top 6 chances after beating Cardiff because Cardiff are pretty appalling right now. But despite the unrest behind the scenes over the past few months, Norwich are in a good position right now, and it pales in comparison to what it was, you know, a matter of months ago when it looked like it was all really going to shit for Norwich. But yeah, well done to David Wagner on turning it around. A quick word on Cardiff City, Justin, who I'm getting increasingly more worried about. Aled Hopkins has been in touch with his 3-word review. in big trouble. And the drop-off has been huge, hasn't it? It's now 10 losses from 15 for Cardiff. In that time, no team has scored fewer than them, and only 2 sides have conceded more. It's a big contrast to earlier in the season, isn't it?
Yeah, big contrast to September. If you really dig into Cardiff's form, I was startled to look at. I know XG is a controversial subject for people, but I was startled to see that they've only created over 1 XG since the start of November. That is staggering. Perry Ng is the top scorer with 5. Then it's Dimitris Gautas, who's level with Carlin Grant, and Ike Ugbo, who's now left. It is not good enough. You have to be creating more. You have to be scoring more. And ultimately, if you offer more in games, you might come away with something from games like this one against Norwich. But they're just so blunt going forwards. We've said that for the last 2 years, really, with this Cardiff team. And frankly, that's why I was a bit disappointed with Bullock kicking off earlier on in the January transfer window and saying that he needs players. I think he's got players that are better than creating 1 XG over more than 3 times since November. That is the simple crux of it. The team needs to be doing better, and the book stops with Bullock.
Yeah, well, they have been appallingly bad, and it just seems to be getting worse, doesn't it? I was the same as you, Justin. I looked at their XG, and while it may not be everyone's cup of tea, it does not paint a very happy picture at all. And they've just been getting comfortably beaten each week. They offer next to nothing going forwards. They've failed to score in 9 of their last 16 games, and now they're shipping goals as well. They are genuinely playing like one of the worst teams in the division right now. And they're lucky, really, that they did have that great start, because otherwise they could be in serious danger of going down. That's how bad it has been recently. And look, it wasn't too long ago that Eric Bullock was complaining about the lack of business being done by Cardiff in the January window. I'm not sure if he's satisfied in the end or not, but he's overseen this quite dramatic drop-off and needs to put things right, and quickly, because otherwise Cardiff will be sinking down that table and may get to a stage where they are looking over their shoulder. I don't think you can completely rule it out. That's how badly they are right now. Continuing with the theme of the playoff race, Coventry, other side, continuing to occupy 6th place. They won 1-0 away at Stoke. Ellis Sims with the goal, someone who's not really lived up to expectations this season since joining for big money in the summer, but goals in back-to-back games for him, so hopefully he can kick on from there. Luke's 3-road review, 5th is the ambition. And finally, Preston 2, Blackburn 2. Preston are 9th and just 2 points off the playoffs. Surprisingly, had a bit of form recently as well. Right, Justin, I'm interested to see what you think is the current pecking order of the playoff hopefuls now that we've gone through most of the runners and riders in this playoff race. I assume we both think West Brom will be in there, so yes, we can omit them from the discussions unless you think otherwise, but clearly you don't based off what you just said. So, Justin, if you had to rank the playoff chasers on who's the most likely to finish in the top 6, who would be your 3 at the front of the queue?
So you're asking me who's going to finish 6th, basically?
Essentially, yes, at this stage.
Okay. Now, this is an interesting debate. I want to back Coventry because I want to back Mark Robbins, but I think there's something a little bit I'm not overly convinced by. I don't know why. I think it's more so that they have had to tweak the formation a little bit, and maybe that opens them up somewhat against opposition, and they might be a bit more vulnerable on attacking. I think a lot of that depends on Callum O'Hare's fitness as well. If he stays fit, I think he was left out in midweek because of fatigue. I can't get Norwich out of my head. I can't get them out of my head. I am being seduced by Gabriel Sara, Josh Sargent, Boye Sainz, Johnny Rhodes, just all this attacking quality in that side, and I'm getting an air of the old Norwich a little bit with them. Don't get me wrong, I don't think David Wagner's Daniel Farke by any means, but I can't get them out of my head. But if I was to make a list, I will go Coventry are the most likely. Then I'll say Norwich, and then I think there'll be a someone coming from deep. I might edge towards a Watford. I just think defensively they're good. It's just whether or not they run out of juice. I can't see Sunderland getting into the top 6 under Mick Beale. Preston are accidentally 9th. There's no way they'll sustain that. And Hull, I think Hull will finish 8th or 7th, probably 2 or 3 points off the top 6 because I've not been convinced by the performances of late.
I'm surprised you think that about Hull, but this is my stance. For me, definitely Coventry at the front. I just think they've got so much quality and look a class above everyone else. Great manager as well. I'm not sure why you've got any doubts about them really, Justin, because I think every time I have a question about them, they just seem to find another gear. So that's why I have Coventry miles away at the front of my queue. Then I would say Hull. Haven't been mind-blowingly great recently, have Hull, but surely it will click sooner or later. They've got a squad that really should be playing better than it has been, although, as we were alluding to earlier, they have got a tricky run of games coming up. And then I want to go Sunderland. In terms of the players, Sunderland should be in the top 6 right now. There's no doubt in my mind about that. It's just the bloody manager. So if they were to get there, I'm not sure if that would be with or without Mick Beale, but they've undoubtedly got a much better squad than their position in the table suggests. Norwich, I'm still not completely convinced by, mainly because I just think they're very shaky at the back. Also, Jonathan Rowe being out injured, I think, is a really big blow in that regard. And then the others, I really struggle to make a significant argument for. They may not be far off the top 6 in terms of points, but I'm looking at Preston and Watford, and I'm like, can I really see any of them finishing in the playoffs? I'd be lying if I said it did. So that's what my top 3 would be. I'd go Coventry, miles away at the top, then Hull, then Sunderland.
Wow. No Norwich. No Norwich.
Incredible. No, not for me, Justin.
I think they've got more attacking potential than Sunderland do, especially under Mick Beale. I think David Wagner's...
I think you're getting carried away with recency bias.
Recency bias being that they've been in much better form than Sunderland. Yeah,
that's what recency bias is. Yes,
yep. I'm just saying. Norwich have looked a lot more convincing over the past 6 weeks than Sunderland have.
Okay, well, that's your opinion, Justin. Not sure I agree, but we'll move on, whatever the case. And in fact, we'll have a quick break. After that, we'll reveal places where our listeners have met footballers in strange locations. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and it's now time for us to check out how our second tier multiple with SBK got on, which included our game of the week, as well as Justin and I's 2 bankers from Friday. We had West Brom, Leicester and Ipswich all to win, so just the one winner there, and we're not getting any closer, are we? But we'll be back again with another multiple in this coming Friday's preview show with SBK. I'm continuing to be confident we will get one before the end of the season. Anyway, Justin, now it's time for us to talk about our listeners meeting footballers in random places. I've been looking forward to this, and this comes after Thursday's episode where I mentioned I bumped into Jamie Vardy while coming out of a train toilet, of course. And the response we've had from listeners since then has been actually insane. We've just had email after email, and I've actually lost count with the number of people who've got in touch. So thank you for sending in your correspondence. We won't be able to mention them all, so sorry if you don't get a shout out here. But here are some of the eye-catching ones, Justin, a selection of them. Adam Brewer met Rob Green at a Chemical Brothers gig before questioning why he left Leeds, but he wasn't very pleased with that. Daniel Brown met Danny Higginbottom at the Fun Shack in Seaham? Sunderland way, I think. Okay. And also Sol Campbell at a National Trust reserve in Northumberland. Carl Stewart says he stood next to Mickey Gray at the urinals of the Stadium of Light toilets. I really enjoyed this one. Ben Rowley says he bumped into Gordon Banks at a Pizza Hut in Newcastle under Lyme. And before Justin asks, no, I don't know what the topping was. Thomas Plummer met Giles Coke at his mum's 50th birthday party.
That's an obscure one.
Giles Coke is an obscure. That might be the best one.
Mum's 50th birthday party. What is the relation there? Why is he there?
It's just the beauty of completely obscure former Championship player and mum's 50th birthday party. Fantastic combination. Daniel Mee bumped into Peter Crouch and Kenrick Jones at his mum's petrol station in Stoke. Robin Harper says while he worked at home base in Ipswich, he bumped into John McGrill, Herman Haridason, Joe Royal and Marcus Stewart, all at different times.
I was going to say, they turning up together.
Not together. That's a weird party. Kyle met David Prutton, Jonathan Douglas and Casper Ankergan at Leeds Fest. And finally, Justin, this one is my favourite. It's from Stephen Whitfield. He says, I once met Claude Davis and Ricardo Fuller in a rough old bar in Preston where the music was really loud. Now, he tried to say hello to Claude, but he was apparently being rather ignorant. So he pretended that his gran was on the phone and told him that it would make her day if he spoke with her. So he passed him the phone and he was there shouting on the phone to absolutely no one. It's petty, but very enjoyable.
Oh, Claude Davis, what a name. Claude Davis could only head upwards as well, to hark back to a bygone era. Could not head the ball for a centre half. No, they were special. There were some good ones, but yeah, just trying to approach a football. I remember seeing some Derby players at a club in Derby.
I was going to say
yes, yeah. They were where they were playing. I think one of them was Connor Doyle. So obscure, no one will know who he is. It's completely irrelevant pointing that out. But yeah, it's weird seeing players out in public, especially at a nightclub, and you try and talk to them, and no one can hear anything. You don't get anything out of the experience, but that was a special interchange between.
You didn't give Connor Doyle your phone and say that your nan was on the other line.
I wish I did. Maybe I'll try it next time when I meet a football at a club, when I work up the courage to actually leave, go to a loud environment like that.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sending those in. It's been great fun so far. But let's keep it going. secondtierpod@gmail.com. Keep sending them in. You may get a shout out on the show very soon. The more bizarre the location where you met them, the better, I think. Anyway, let's look at the relegation battle. And it's all got very interesting down there. There's now just 6 points separating 22nd and 15th. That's after QPR won 1-0 away at Bristol City. How do you go from ending Southampton's 25-game unbeaten run to losing at home to QPR? Honestly, if that doesn't just sum up the Championship in a nutshell, I don't know what does. But a huge result for QPR. 5 of the 6 teams above them all lost. And it's seemed to really throw the cat amongst the pigeons with regards to the relegation battle, Justin.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of clubs sweating now, which is it's quite ironic. Oh, not ironic, just quite coincidental. Even not coincidental. It's just interesting that those teams above them are just being pulled into it because teams like Sheffield Wednesday and QPR are bang in form. They are in form. They are playing so much better than they were in the first half of the season, and they're getting results while the teams above them are losing. And of course, it's great for us because we get topics to talk about. But the fact that QPR have managed to turn around their form, beat a team who just beat the second best team in the league at home in Bristol City, and do it quite comfortably, by the way. They were the better team. They controlled the game as well. I think it says something about the quality that actually is in this squad and what Marty Cifuentes is doing to tap him out of it. So, yeah, it's an incredible result for QPR. Really good performance, and yeah, the makeup of what it's done to the relegation battle changes the outlook completely, because there are teams there where you were so confident at one point, and now it's just like you're sweating, you're nervous, and you're asking many questions about the managers that are in charge of them.
Squeaky bum time, isn't it? And I don't think many expected QPR to get anything from this after the midweek results, but hey, that's the Championship for you, as I said. Well, actually, it's QPR for you, really, isn't it? Because they seem to get something from games that they shouldn't, and then mess up on games where they should get something. We were just making that point in Friday's show, weren't we? I mean, they've got Rotherham up next, so we all know how that's going to go now. But look, they're fighting, aren't they? They look much more solid now than they were under Gareth Ainsworth. New signing Lucas Anderson as well looks very sharp. A front three of him, Elias Chair and Chris Willock should provide plenty of chances. The main issue is those chances are going to Lyndon Dykes. But look, they've closed the safety gap. And if they stay solid at the back, they've got a great chance of staying up, particularly because there are so many teams above them who are really faltering right now. Particularly because of the teams above them struggling, one of them was at the Den, Millwall 0, Sheffield Wednesday 2. Darth Alcoholic, his 3-word review, says Joe Edwards out. 1 point from 7 games now for the Lions. Just over a month ago, they were 10 points away from the relegation zone, Justin. Now it's just 1 point. And based off how they've been playing, things could get worse a lot quickly for Millwall, couldn't they? Because it's not going very well at all.
Well, you've got to look at the game here as an isolation. No disrespect to Sheffield Wednesday, but their away form is garbage. So for Wednesday to outwork them in this fixture, which is of huge magnitude, by the way, it just isn't good enough. And Joe Edwards has really got to stand up and almost take responsibility and be an experienced manager, which is going to be difficult because he's inexperienced. But at this point, an experienced manager just rolls the sleeves up and creates that trench-like attitude, worlds against us, the Millwall theme, if you like. And that, you build from there. But I saw him I listened to his post-match press. He's feeling sorry for himself. Things aren't going their way. Sheffield Wednesday only scored their 2 shots on target. You need to do better in these games. It's not a taking chances thing. It's getting the players G'd up and motivated and character and tactically being spot on. There's a lot of variables there, and sadly, I just don't think it's been good enough for Millwall. It's not very good. It's actually quite terrible to be in the position where they're in, because they had a summer that they recruited extensively, and it's fallen foul of, I don't know, underperformance. It's ridiculous.
You don't think 1 point from 7 games is good enough?
I'm stating the obvious. I'm well aware of that.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, those key things that Gary Rowett built at Millwall, being hard to beat, being hard to play against, working incredibly hard, taking chances, it's not there. It's gone. And that went with Rowett. Joe Edwards hasn't been able to get any consistency or any of those beliefs into that team. And frankly, if that's not the case, what does this Millwall team offer? Nothing.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what's changed in the last month, but it is killing them. They were making good progress under Joe Edwards, but like the flick of a switch, it's all gone wrong very quickly. And it's getting to the point now where they may have to knock this Joe Edwards experiment on the head. I was a fan of the appointment when it happened. I always like to see young coaches given a go in management. And I think I even went as far as to say Millwall can afford to gamble because it's unlikely they'll go down. Well, now they could. I mean, ultimately, Justin, let's be serious. A team with the likes of Zian Fleming, Jake Cooper, Japhet Tenganga, Kasper Denora, et al., they should not be sitting 21st, should they? And in fact, this team isn't completely different to the team that only just missed out on the playoffs last season.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it, isn't it? And as I say, it's those beliefs that Gary Rowett put into that team. They've gone. I'm not trying to say things were better under Gary Rowett. I mean, they were because we had them on the cusp of the playoffs, but there needed to be
factually
a change.
They were.
Yeah, factually they were, but you get the point. There needed to be a change this season, unfortunately, because things just ran their course. But what is the expense of that? It's the price of progress. That's the key thing here. And unfortunately, Millwall have probably taken 2 or 3 steps back to take 5 or 6 forwards, and it's not the time to do it. They need to do what they were doing under Gary Rowett, which is making games ugly, making it hard and horrible for opposition to play against Millwall, and going from there. Because as I say, what's transpired over the last 6-7 weeks has not been good enough, and as Millwall are now on the cusp of dropping into the bottom 3, which is a travesty because Sheffield Wednesday, QPR, and Rotherham have been in the bottom 3 for 99% of the season.
Yeah, well, they have. It's a great win for Wednesday, though, isn't it? They're 4 points from safety now and still have a bit of life left in them. Aaron's 3-word review needed that win. Justin, I've got a question for you. Even if they go down, Danny Rule will have undoubtedly done a great job there, wouldn't he? So do you think he maybe should be on the radar of championship clubs if they get relegated? Because, I mean, the job that he's doing doesn't deserve to be in League One next season, does it?
It doesn't, and I guess it depends where Chansiri is at as well, because I wouldn't be surprised if he sacks Danny Rule, because it's Chansiri, and he's a volatile man. And that would be an absolute travesty if he does, because, as you say, Danny Rule's done a fantastic job at Wednesday, and I think I've said it before in the last sort of couple of months that Sheffield Wednesday were the worst team I've ever seen at this level at one point this season. They were garbage under Isco Munoz. So for Danny Rule to come in and change that and actually give them a fighting chance is incredible. They were pointless after 10 games, weren't they, under Munoz? So I had a point after 10 games.
No, they had 2 points from 10 games.
Still absolutely terrible. 2 points from, let me do the maths, 30 is it's disgraceful, really. It shouldn't be the case for a team coming up this poor. So Danny Rule's got them in a position where actually they have an opportunity, they have a chance. It's going to be up against them, but he's put all those variables in place that Millwall need, that Stoke need. It's that grit, determination, and character to get out of it. And it might come too late, but as you say, he deserves an opportunity at the Championship again. Whether or not he gets it is another story, but there will likely be Championship clubs sniffing around him at the end of the season should Wednesday go down.
Well, it's fascinating, really, isn't it, when you look at Millwall v Sheffield Wednesday, because you've got one club who have profited off giving a young coach their first job in management, and the other one who's now struggling and possibly even regretting it. But yeah, I mean, from a Danny Rule perspective, if you get the chance to get out of Sheffield Wednesday so you don't have to work with Chansiri anymore, you're going to take it, aren't you? Let's 100%. Be pretty frank about it. So, I mean, he definitely deserves better than relegation, because I think he's done a fantastic job in just turning the tide with Wednesday, because you're right, Justin, they were abysmal under Isco Munoz, and I don't think at any point did it look like they had a chance of staying up, and now with Danny Rule, with the work that he's done, they do. It's remarkable that it's even got to this stage. Southampton bounced back after their first loss in 26 games by winning 2-0 away at West Brom on Friday night. Marlon's 3-word review: statement, reaction, win. I think this game just goes to show the gap between the top 4 and the rest of the league, doesn't it? Because you've got West Brom, the best team outside the top 4, have been consistent all season, particularly at home, and they were rather handedly swept aside, particularly with Southampton, who could have won by more in this one. So that just goes to show that this top four are just a ridiculous standard, aren't they? One of the best we've ever seen at Championship level, possibly even the best. There was a rather strange incident in this one. Carlos Corberán was sent off early on after touching the ball while it was still in play. A bit of a strange one. You don't see it very often.
No, you don't, and it's quite nice to see it, just to remind you that you cannot come out of your technical error. So I know it's quite close at the Hawthorns, but old Corbs is he's an enthusiastic man on the sideline, so I'm not surprised that he felt the urge to touch it, and it might have gone out, it might not have, but just refrain, Carlos. Just refrain. Do not touch the ball unless it lands at your feet. I think that's the big takeaway from it.
It's a bit too enthusiastic in this case, wasn't it? He has done that. Well, to be honest, he's so enthusiastic on the touchline that it surprises me he hasn't been sent off earlier.
Yeah.
Because,
but the thing is, he's a very nice person, isn't he?
Oh, like, yeah. But
he's not like a volatile character. He's just enthusiastic. He's
too enthusiastic in this case.
But he touched the ball, and yes, a red card offence in football, apparently.
Silly Carlos. Not a great night on the pitch then for West Brom, but it was a night to celebrate because, Justin, they finally been taken over, or they're set to be taken over anyway. American businessman Shailen Patel has agreed a deal to buy the club. It's been approved by the EFL and will be complete in the coming weeks. Excellent news, Justin. Absolutely excellent news, because the current owner, Guachan Lai, truly is one of the worst owners in English football right now. We won't fully divulge into that. So getting the club out of his hands and into someone else's is great, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't judge a new owner until things are sorted, things are done, until things are communicated as well. But Baggy fans...
Can't be much worse than what we've had, Justin, though, can
Oh,
it?
absolutely not. But it's always one of those things that, yes, we're being taken over, but there's always a little bit in my mind where it's just like, okay, well, actually, what if this owner's not very good either? But you can't think about that. It's all about action with owners and reassurance, and that comes from doing positive things. And I say Baggies fans have been long in the dark for a while, so this is a ray of light that they absolutely needed. And I think rather than looking at what the club can do on the pitch success-wise, I think Albion fans can rest better knowing that they have a football club to support, because things were getting bad. People at the club will be able to keep their jobs, etc. I think that's a big thing. Taking out loans from football bankers like MSD is not how you run or fund a football club. It's just not sustainable, and it's going to catch up with you at some point. So hopefully these are the steps with the new ownership to a more sustainable success. And if they win promotion this season under old Corbs, it's a huge bonus.
Yeah, well, everything's been going really well on the pitch for West Brom, hasn't it? It kind of shadows over what chaos it has been off the pitch, and the concern from the fans, particularly because at one stage, well, if West Brom didn't get promoted in the next 3 years or so, then there is a genuine chance that they could go out of business. I'm not sure how this all changes now with the new owners, but you'd hope that that's pretty much been eradicated now. So it's a promising situation for West Brom. It's a bright new day for them. Interesting that this new guy, Shailen Patel, from what I understand, has links to the company which has loaned money to West Brom in the past. So how that all transpires and what happens with that now, I don't know. But hopefully this is a brand new start for West Brom, and with Corberán doing what he's doing, considering everything that's going on off the pitch and very little backing, hopefully now he can take West Brom to a new level, with the new owners giving him plenty of backing and support. So it sounds great. I think a shout out as well for Alistair from Action for Albion, who we've had on the podcast before, the campaign group against the owners currently at the club, soon to be heading out, done a great job in campaigning against this and spreading awareness as well. So well done to Alistair, and hopefully this is a brand new beginning for West Bromwich Albion and they can start looking ahead to the future. We'll quickly round off the playoff race, the promotion race. Justin, Leeds made it 8 wins in a row by beating Plymouth 2-0. Mr. Scrubs, 3-word review. Willie's on fire, definitely need context there. At the start of the year, Leeds were 9 points off the top 2. Just a month and a half later, they're second. A remarkable run that they're going on. No team has ever won more than 10 games in a row in Championship history, and if Leeds are to do it, they've got to take a pretty big scalp along the way, because they have Leicester at home next Friday. Justin, your mouth is watering, I can tell.
It is my palpitating. I don't know if that's the right word. It sounds disgusting, actually. But I am. You can be
palpitating if you want.
I'm palpitating. I'm excited. Good. I can't wait, because I genuinely think Leeds have got an opportunity here to get 3 points. I think the style of football.
Of course they have.
Yeah, well, no, I think the style of football that both teams play, I think it probably suits Leeds in this game. So I am wonderfully excited to get my teeth into this and get the mouth watering. Even more.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. Leeds have one of the best home records in the league, don't they? So you'd expect them to give Leicester a game and maybe even head into this as favourites. But, after that game, Leeds have got 4 games against sides 19th or below. So there's a chance that they do break this winning streak record. They've just conceded 1 goal in this 8-game winning run as well, which is just incredible. So Leeds stay second, 2 points ahead of Southampton, but having played a game more. Quick shout out for Plymouth's Ash Phillips, who scored a calamitous own goal before it was ruled out for offside. It was very, very funny, and even he had a little giggle about it afterwards, which I enjoyed. And to round up the promotion race, Ipswich won 2-1 away at Swansea. Freddie's 3-word review, that will do. Rhys Curtis says, Connor Chaplin, baby. So Ipswich stay 4th, 3 points behind Leeds, but have a game in hand. So that rounds up all the action from the Championship over the weekend. But just before we do the polls and Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight, Justin, have you been keeping up with the goings-ons at 11th tier Doncaster City? Well, if you haven't, then maybe you should start, because they seem to be assembling a Championship All-Star 11, because in the last few days they've signed Wes Hoolahan, Ross McCormack and Charlie Mulgrew. It's like Championship Galacticos. It's great, Justin. All of them started in their game against Durn and District on Saturday, and they won 3-1. Great stuff, though, isn't it?
I want to know who's the owner of Doncaster City and how has he got these contacts?
I think it's an agent. I believe it's a very well-connected agent who started the club. Very well connected. But I think the club, Doncaster City, were founded like 2 years ago. So I believe that's where it's all come from. So that explains that. But Justin, I've had a crack at guessing who the 3 next most likely Championship legends to join them are. I was wondering if you wanted to hear them.
Yeah, of course. I want to know who you deem, firstly, Championship Galacticos and who might be next on the list of Doncaster City.
I've gone with a bit of a formula of Championship legends, but recently retired. So they've got to fit into that category, but also I could foresee joining an 11th tier, non-league side. So I've gone with James Perch, Mark Duffy, and Leon Clark. Could you foresee them joining Doncaster City in the near future?
I wouldn't consider any of them Championship Galacticos for starters. I think they played a lot of games, but I wouldn't. Leon Clark had a really good season. Did he win the Golden Boot with Sheffield United? He scored a lot of goals anyway. He scored a lot of goals. Maybe he will, because he doesn't have Doncaster City on his CV yet, and that'll be the thing for him. He will need to play for
his Wikipedia page is fantastic, isn't it?
Mark Duffy, it's around their area that I imagine he lives in, because he's Sheffield based, but he was at Macclesfield at one point, so I don't really know. And James Perch, completely forgot he existed. So
yeah.
Hopefully
I just think it would be fantastic if we saw this trend continuing and they continue to sign Championship legends. I'm keeping a close eye on Doncaster City for the foreseeable future. Anyway, now it's time for the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter. Just want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So first off, it's the question that we asked in the first half of the show. Justin, who is finishing 6th? Coventry, Hull, Norwich, Sunderland. You said Coventry first, didn't you?
I did say Coventry, so I'll stick with it and not confuse everybody.
Good. I also said Coventry, and the listeners agree with us. 45% of people said Coventry, 29% said Hull, 17% said Norwich, only 9% said Sunderland. Beale out. Who's winning the Golden Boot? Adam Armstrong, Crescencio Somerville, Sammy Schmoddix, Morgan Whittaker.
Can I stick with my pre-season shout and say Ross Stewart?
You can do if you want. How many minutes has he played this season? Like 90?
Yeah, about that. He's a good striker. I think I'll go with Adam Armstrong. The amount of chances that Southampton create, surely he's going to, and penalties as well, is going to be a big thing. Yeah,
Schmoddix doesn't seem like he's slowing down anytime soon, though, does he? Which is remarkable. So fair play to him. I think maybe I just signed with Schmoddix. 36% of people said Adam Armstrong, 26% said Schmoddix, 25% Somerville, 30% said Whittaker, and finally, what is the best biscuit? Chocolate hobnob, Jaffa cake, Jammy Dodger, chocolate bourbon.
None of those. Malted milk with chocolate on it.
Really?
Malted milk with chocolate.
Bland.
No, malted milk with chocolate. It's basically all of those above, but a little bit. It's a little bit of savoury because the malted milk, and then the chocolate is a bit of sweet. It's a delight. But I'd say Jammy Dodger out of those.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I did not expect that at all, Justin. Jammy Dodger is the least popular one on that list. 13% of people said Jammy Dodger, 45% said Hobnob, 22% said Jaffa Cake, 20% said Chocolate Bourbon. I'm glad you didn't flag up whether Jaffa Cake was a biscuit or not, because I don't want to get into all that controversy.
It's a big debate. I was going to say about Jammy Dodgers, if you leave them out a little bit and they go a tiny bit soft, they are perfect. It is perfect.
Oh, now you're talking dirty to me. Now it's time for this.
Hi, Simon Grayson here.
Yes, it's time for Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight. So I'm going to ask Justin to name 8 of a certain subject. All he's got to do is name all 8. So, for example, if I would say name Steve Bruce's last 8 clubs, he would say Villa, that's 1 down. Then Newcastle, that's another down. But if Justin were to then say Weymouth, he would lose a life. So all he needs to do is give me all 8 answers without losing all of his lives. And you can get involved in the fun by sending in your Hateful Eights for either Justin and I to answer. Send them in to secatierpod@gmail.com. And you could get a shout out the next time we do a Hateful Eight. That's exactly what Todd Clark did. He's provided this question, and it's an absolute cracker. And he's clearly done a lot of work to figure this one out. So thank you very much, Todd, because I definitely wouldn't have bothered to figure this all out. He wants you, Justin, to name the 8 championship clubs who have to do the least amount of travel for away games this season. This is based on total miles they will have to travel according to Google Maps. What do you think of that?
A long time listeners know my geography is terrible.
Yep.
So thanks for this. Thank you, Todd. Yeah, okay, great. I'm going to spectacularly disappoint everybody here and myself.
You got to think about this logically, all right, and you won't be too far wrong. You're getting 3 lives on this. Justin, what is your first answer?
So the least amount of travel.
Yep, that's exactly what I said.
I obviously won't say Plymouth or Sunderland because they are terribly far apart in the country. So I'll go with a Midlands-based club and say Birmingham City.
Birmingham City is correct. They have to do the second least amount of travel this season. That's just over 2,600 miles. That's 1 down, Justin.
I can't think of any other Midlands-based clubs now.
That's a good start.
Stoke, Staffordshire.
Stoke is correct. They're 6th on this list. Just under 3,000 miles Stoke fans have to do this season. Those bloody Stokies. Right, you've got 6 left, Justin.
6 left. Coventry, Midlands-based club again. Just going with the logic you told me. You're guiding me. I'll go Coventry City.
Coventry are the club which have to do the least amount of travelling for away games this season. Just under 2,600 miles.
That's why their away following is so good. And Birmingham, because they don't have to go anywhere.
Well, there you go then. What's the next one, Justin?
Leicester.
Leicester have the 3rd least travelling to do in the Championship this season, just under 2,700 miles. That means you're halfway there, Justin. Gets a bit trickier now.
So I've told you 4.
Yes.
Okay, I've told you 4. Yorkshire basically, I'll go with Huddersfield.
Huddersfield are 9th on this list. So that's 1 life down, Justin. They have to do 3,221 miles of travelling, which isn't good enough for this list, unfortunately. What's your next one?
I'll go Watford.
Watford are 10th on this list, meaning Justin Peach has lost 2 lives in quick succession. Watford have to do 3,247 miles of travelling. That means you've got 1 life left, Justin. You have 4 to go.
It's going to get tricky with Northwest, but I've given myself a barrier now.
Okay.
I've given myself boundaries. Huddersfield typically higher than Sheffield, so I'll go Sheffield Wednesday next.
Sheffield Wednesday are 5th on this list. Just under 3,000 miles they have to do this season. That means you've got 3 remaining, Peachy boy.
I don't think anybody's between Watford and Coventry. So I might have to go for a Northwest club and stick my neck out a wee bit. Oh, Rotherham.
Rotherham's correct. They are 7th on this list, just over 3,000 miles. That means you've got 2 remaining, Justin. You're going to be kicking yourself at the end of this.
I probably am.
1 life remaining.
Okay, I think Preston's a bit too far up. So I'll edge towards... I've forgotten who's there. Blackburn.
Blackburn are not on this list. They have to do 3,500, which is quite significantly more than the next team below them. So unfortunately, Justin, you've fallen foul to Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight. One of the reasons for that is you've forgotten another Midlands club.
West Brom.
Yes. West Brom are fourth on this list, just over 2,800 miles. The final club you were looking for, Leeds United. Just over 32.
Huddersfield.
Well, they just have to do 3,200 miles, which is slightly less than Huddersfield.
I need to get a map out.
Well, you can do that, but you're wrong, unfortunately. So Justin Peach has fallen foul to Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight. Once again, his shocking geography has let him down, but I'm sure one day he will get a geography Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight correct at some point. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Second Tier Podcast, and we'll be back again on Thursday to give you a roundup of the handful of championship games which we've got coming up on Tuesday night. So we look forward to seeing you then, as well as talking about any other championship bits and pieces as well. So we'll join you on Thursday then, shall we? This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big, huge, massive thank you for listening.